Our devotion today comes from Exodus chapter 5. Before we look at it, remember today to be in prayer for Ken and Lori Huff. So, in this chapter, we see Moses begins to go out and answer the call of God on his life. He's beginning this mission that God has sent him out on to go to Pharaoh and to get Pharaoh to set the Israelites free. A huge job, obviously, but Moses and Aaron go out walking in obedience to fulfill this calling. And it's interesting to me. I really appreciate that it starts out like this because Moses' first attempt to walk in obedience to what God has called him to do doesn't go very well, does it? Not only does Pharaoh refuse to grant Moses' request, Moses ends up making things worse on his people. Pharaoh is sort of offended or upset or whatever. He thinks that the Israelites are not working hard enough and increases their workload, makes them go gather straw for themselves. And, it doesn't seem to be going the way that Moses thinks that it should. I mean, God called him to do this. God sent him, and he's walking in obedience. I mean, this is a huge step of faith, and yet things seem to have only gotten worse. And I think that there's really an incredibly simple message here. I mean, we know God's plan hasn't derailed, and this wasn't surprising. God knew Pharaoh's response, and yet God still called Moses to walk in obedience. And I think that is something that's good for us to realize. Just because we choose to answer the call of God and walk in obedience doesn't mean it's always going to go the way that we think that it should. And it doesn't mean we're always going to see that success right off the bat or even at all, because, we're obedient to deliver the message of God or do what He's called us to do or share the gospel. But we're not responsible for how the people react to us or the success of that. God's the one that brings the fruit. He's in control, and He just calls us to walk in obedience. And I think that's an encouragement for us, because sometimes when we set out into ministry, it just doesn't go the way that we think that it should. And I think that the important thing, and certainly when we read stories like this, we know the important thing is that we do what God has called us to do. We leave the results in His hands. I'm thankful for this passage today. I pray that God revealed something to you out of this passage, and if He did, leave us a message and minister to one another. God bless you.